I'm standing in front of a wall of security monitors in a guest house worth more than my parents' entire estate, watching my brother through the camera feed. Reese Green. The golden child. The chosen one. The man who inherited $890,000 while I got a check for $5,000 and a note that said I'd always been independent. He's holding a duffel bag in one hand, a cardboard box in the other. His BMW is gone, sold, probably, along with everything else our parents left him. His hand shakes as he reaches for the doorbell again. Third time in 2 minutes. 3 years ago, I was the family disappointment. The divorced daughter with a community college degree and a studio apartment in the worst part of San Jose. The one my mother Stella introduced as Anna. She's going through a rough patch, and my father Walter called the independent one like it was a character flaw. Now I'm a tech executive with a 15-acre estate, a 7-figure net worth, and a guest house my brother desperately wants to occupy. The doorbell rings again. I don't move. My fiancé David appears behind me, coffee in hand. You going to answer that? Not yet. He looks rough, Anna. He should. Because here's what David doesn't fully understand, what nobody who didn't grow up in my family can comprehend. This isn't about petty revenge. This is about the day I sat in a lawyer's office and learned exactly what I was worth to the people who raised me. This is about the moment Reese looked at me across that mahogany desk and shrugged while I absorbed the fact that our parents had valued him at roughly 400 times my worth. This is about what that $5,000 taught me. On the monitor, Reese cups his hands against the window, trying to peer inside. He looks desperate. Good. He should know what that feels like. But to understand why I'm standing here, why my finger isn't even hovering near the button that would unlock this door, you need to go back with me. Back to the day everything shattered. Back to the moment I realized my family had been performing an elaborate play my entire life, and I was the only one who didn't know my role was expendable. It was March 15th, 3 years ago. A Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were always my late day at work, and I'd had to beg my supervisor at the tech startup for time off to attend my father's will reading. Family emergency, I'd said, though my father had been dead for 2 weeks by then. The emergency was finding out what scraps, if any, he'd left behind. The law offices of Chen and Associates occupied the 14th floor of a building in downtown Palo Alto, the kind of place where the elevator had mirrors and the lobby smelled like expensive leather. I'd worn my only black dress, Target, $32.99, purchased the day before the funeral because I'd learned long ago not to ask my parents for money for things like appropriate mourning clothes. Reese arrived in a tailored Tom Ford suit, his wife Melissa dripping in the pearl necklace our mother had given her the previous Christmas. They looked like they were attending a business acquisition, not a funeral proceeding. In a way, I suppose they were. Anna, Reese said, checking his Rolex. You're late. I was 3 minutes early. Attorney Richard Chen gestured us into a conference room dominated by a table that could seat 12. There were only 3 chairs occupied, Reese, Melissa, and me. I sat alone on one side. They sat together on the other, a unified front. That should have told me everything. Mr. Chen opened a burgundy folder embossed with my father's initials. WRG. Walter Robert Green. A man who'd made his fortune in commercial real estate, who'd retired at 62 with a portfolio worth millions, who'd spent the last decade of his life telling me I should be more like my brother. Let's begin, Chen said, and started reading in that particular cadence lawyers use, the one that strips emotion from life-changing information. To my beloved son Reese, the family home in Palo Alto, currently valued at $1.2 million. My investment portfolio, currently valued at approximately $890,000. The vacation property in Lake Tahoe. The vintage automobile collection. My wife Stella's jewelry, to be held in trust for Melissa and any future granddaughters. I stopped breathing somewhere around the vintage automobile collection. We were well past $2 million, and my name hadn't been mentioned. Chen's eyes flickered to me. Professional sympathy. He'd done this before, delivered news like this to shocked relatives. And to my daughter Anna Green. I leaned forward. Everything else fell away. This was it. The moment I'd learn I was wrong, that my paranoia about always being second best was just insecurity. that of course my parents had loved me equally. A sum of $5,000, with the following note to be read aloud. Anna, you've always prided yourself on being independent and not needing our help. We trust this will be sufficient for any immediate expenses. Your brother will need these resources to continue the family legacy and provide for future generations. We know you understand. The words hit like physical blows. $5,000. Melissa's hand flew to her mouth, but not fast enough to cover the smile. Reese at least had the decency to look at the table instead of at me. I'm sorry, I said, and my voice sounded strange, distant. Could you repeat that? The amount? Chen's face softened with genuine pity. Your parents have left you $5,000, Ms. Green. The room tilted. Reese got $2.1 million. I got enough to cover a month's rent and groceries. That can't be right. My hands gripped the edge of the table. There's been a mistake. We're both their children. We both. The will is legally sound, Chen said gently. I advised your father multiple times to reconsider the distribution, but he was quite clear about his intentions. Quite clear. My father had been quite clear that I was worth $5,000 of his legacy. I looked at Reese. Really looked at him. Waiting for outrage, for him to stand up and say this was insane, that he'd split it with me, that blood was thicker than whatever twisted logic our parents had used. He straightened his tie. That was it. A small gesture, adjusting his appearance, preparing to leave. Reese, I said. He finally met my eyes. Anna, listen. This is what they wanted. You always made such a big deal about being self-sufficient, about not needing their money. Maybe they were just respecting that. Respecting. The word tasted like poison. They gave you 400 times what they gave me, and you think that's respect? Melissa spoke for the first time, examining her manicured nails. Well, Anna, you have to admit, if you'd made different life choices, stayed married, finished a real degree, had a more stable career, maybe things would be different. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. Your marriage to Marcus, Reese added, like he was trying to be helpful. Mom and Dad never really approved. And the community college thing instead of university. They had hopes for you. You just went a different direction. I stood up. The chair scraped against hardwood with a sound like a scream. Mr. Chen, is this contestable? He shook his head slowly. The will was updated 6 months ago. Your father was of sound mind. Unless you can prove undue influence or lack of capacity, which I assure you, you cannot. He trailed off. Then we're done here. I walked to the door on legs that didn't feel attached to my body. Anna, don't be dramatic, Melissa called after me. $5,000 is more than some people get. You should be grateful. I turned back. Looked at her. At Reese. At the burgundy folder that contained my parents' final assessment of my worth. Congratulations on your inheritance, I said. I hope it brings you everything you deserve. I made it to my car, a 2009 Honda Civic with a check engine light that had been on for 8 months, before the shaking started. I gripped the steering wheel and screamed. Screamed until my throat was raw, until the windows fogged, until a parking attendant knocked and asked if I needed medical assistance. I needed a lot of things. Medical assistance wasn't one of them. Before we go any further into what happened next, and trust me, what happens next changes everything, I need to know something. Have you ever had the people who raised you look you in the eye and tell you that you're worth less than your sibling? Have you ever had your family reduce your value to a number so insulting it felt like a joke? I spend 15 to 20 hours researching, writing, and perfecting each story for you. That's nearly a full week of work to create these experiences completely free. While you're here living through Anna's story, YouTube only shows it to a tiny fraction of people unless you take just 2 seconds to hit subscribe. Here's the thing, if just half of you watching right now subscribed, this channel would explode, and I could create even deeper, more devastating stories for you every week. But only about 3% of viewers are subscribed. That means 97% of you are enjoying hours of content but haven't taken that tiny step. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for a single click that tells YouTube show this to more people who need to hear they're not alone. So here's my request. If you're already invested in Anna's story, if you want to know how $5,000 becomes a $1 million empire, click subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and means everything to this channel's survival. Also, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love seeing this global community we're building. Last video we had viewers from 47 different countries. Now, let's get back to the story, because what happens next changes everything for Anna. That $5,000 sat in my checking account for 2 weeks while I spiraled. I'd stare at it through my banking app, that number mocking me. I made $52,000 a year as an administrative assistant at a tech startup. My studio apartment in San Jose cost $1,600 a month. My car needed $800 in repairs. My credit card debt from the divorce was still $3,000. $5,000 was simultaneously a fortune and an insult. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not my co-workers, not my friends, not even Jenny, my former roommate from community college. I just went to work, came home, and existed in this numb fog where I couldn't decide what I felt more, grief or rage. Then, on day 15, insomnia drove me to scroll through social media at 2 in the morning. That's when I saw Jenny's post. She was standing in front of a modern office building, champagne in hand, captioned, "Officially a software engineer. 12 weeks of hell paid off. Starting salary $95,000. If I can do it, anyone can. DM me about the boot camp." I clicked through to her profile. Read every post about her journey. 6 months ago, she'd been a restaurant manager making $40,000. She'd enrolled in a coding boot camp. 12 weeks, intensive, brutal. Now she worked for a mid-sized tech company making almost 6 figures. My hands shook as I clicked the link in her bio. The boot camp cost $15,000. But they offered deferred payment. You only paid if you got a job making over $50,000 within 6 months of graduating. I had $5,000. I needed $10,000 more. At 3 in the morning, I filled out the application. At 6, I got an automated response asking me to schedule an interview. At 8, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. At 2 in the afternoon, I was on a video call with an admissions counselor named Marcus. Different Marcus from my ex-husband, I told myself, definitely a sign. "Why coding?" he asked. The truth spilled out before I could stop it. Because I'm tired of being underestimated. I'm tired of people thinking I'm worth less because I don't have the right degree or the right connections. I want to be valuable in a way that's undeniable. I want to be so fucking good at something that nobody can ever question my worth again. Marcus the counselor blinked. Then smiled. "When can you start?" "Yesterday." "How about 3 weeks from Monday?" I hung up and immediately called my credit union. Took out a personal loan for $7,000 at 12% interest. Sold my furniture on Craigslist for $2,000. Found a room in a house in Fremont with 5 roommates for $800 a month instead of my $1,600 studio. I didn't tell Reese. Didn't tell any of my family. I wanted to disappear and re-emerge as someone they wouldn't recognize. The boot camp started on a Monday in April. 12 of us in a room designed for 8, staring at computers for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. The instructor, also named Marcus, which I decided was definitely a sign now, was a former Google engineer who'd walked away from a $400,000 salary to teach. "Most of you won't make it," he said on day 1. "Not because you're not smart enough, but because you'll decide the pain isn't worth it. Coding is just organized problem solving. Everything else is pain tolerance." He was right. The first week, 3 people dropped out. The second week, 2 more. By week 4, we were down to 7. I wasn't going anywhere. While my brain melted learning Python, JavaScript, React, and algorithms I hadn't thought about since high school, Reese was posting on Facebook. Pictures of the house renovations. He'd put in a pool, remodeled the kitchen, turned Dad's study into a home theater. Pictures of a boat. A new BMW. A trip to the Maldives with Melissa. I unfollowed him. Couldn't watch it. Night after night, I dreamed in code. My roommates complained I talked in my sleep about functions and loops. I lost 15 pounds because I kept forgetting to eat. My hands cramped from typing. My eyes burned from staring at screens. And something strange happened. I got good. Really good. Week 8, I built a full-stack application, a scheduling tool for home healthcare workers. It was clunky, probably violated every best practice, but it worked. Marcus, the instructor, stopped me after class. "Anna, you've got something most students don't have. Sleep deprivation and rage." He laughed. "Hunger. Most people here are doing this for a career change. You're doing this like your life depends on it." It does. That's why you're going to make it. The ones with no backup plan are the ones who succeed. Keep going. I graduated on a Friday in November. By Monday, I had 3 interviews lined up through the bootcamp's hiring network. By Wednesday, I had 2 offers. By Friday, I'd accepted a position as a junior developer at a mid-sized tech company. Starting salary, $98,000. I'd nearly doubled my income in 6 months. I called Jenny and cried for an hour. Didn't call Reese. Didn't call Aunt Carol or any of the extended family who'd watched my humiliation at the will reading and said nothing. I moved into a decent 1-bedroom apartment. Bought a reliable used car, a 2015 Camry that actually had working AC. Started aggressively paying down the bootcamp tuition and the personal loan. But I didn't celebrate. Didn't buy new furniture or take a vacation. I lived like I was still broke. Every extra dollar went to debt or savings. When co-workers invited me to happy hour with $15 cocktails, I'd order 1 beer and nurse it all night, telling them I was training for a marathon. I wasn't training for a marathon. I was training for war. Because here's what I understood that Reese didn't: the tech world rewards competence. Pure, undeniable competence. Your gender didn't matter as much. Your family background was irrelevant. Whether you went to Stanford or community college meant nothing if you could solve the problem in front of you. For the first time in my life, I was in a meritocracy. And I was going to win. 11 months later, I got promoted. Senior developer. Salary jumped to $135,000 plus stock options. I moved to a 2-bedroom apartment, luxury, having a separate room for an office. Started contributing to retirement accounts. Paid off the bootcamp tuition completely. But the anger didn't go away. It crystallized into something harder, colder. Every time I deposited a paycheck, I thought about that will reading. Every time I got praise from my manager, I thought about Melissa's comment about life choices. Then Thanksgiving happened. Melissa called me. Not Reese, Melissa. "Anna. Oh my God, it's been forever. How are you?" Her voice was syrupy, performing enthusiasm. "Busy. What do you need?" "Need. I don't need anything. Can't I just call my sister-in-law?" We'd never been close. This was a setup. "We're hosting Thanksgiving at the house. Well, Reese's house now, I guess, and we thought it would be lovely to have you. You know, family is family, right? Water under the bridge." I should have said no. Should have invented plans, a prior commitment, anything. Instead, I said, "I'll be there." Curiosity. Morbid. Dangerous curiosity. I drove to Palo Alto on Thanksgiving in my new-to-me Camry, wearing clothes from Nordstrom Rack that actually fit. I looked fine. Not wealthy, not designer labels, but fine. The house looked different. Modern upgrades everywhere. The pool Reese had posted about dominated the backyard, complete with a hot tub and outdoor kitchen. Inside, everything screamed money. New furniture, art on the walls, floors that gleamed. Melissa answered the door in a dress that cost more than my monthly rent. "Anna, you look nice." The pause before nice said everything. Reese was in the kitchen wearing an apron that said Grill Master. He gave me a one-armed hug that felt obligatory, transactional. "How's the tech thing going?" he asked. "Good. I'm a senior developer now." "Oh, that's great. Like, IT support and stuff." I smiled tightly. "Software development. I build applications." Cool. That's like, computer stuff." He'd already lost interest. turning back to baste a turkey that probably cost $200. Dinner was worse than I'd imagined. Melissa's parents were there, talking about their recent cruise to Alaska. Aunt Carol, asking invasive questions about why I wasn't dating. A cousin I barely knew, bragging about his son's acceptance to Yale. I was seated at the end of the table, next to Melissa's teenage nephew who scrolled through TikTok the entire meal. Then, during pumpkin pie, Melissa struck. "So Anna, are you seeing anyone?" Because Reese's colleague Mark just got divorced, and I was thinking, I'm not interested. "Oh, come on. You're not getting any younger. You're what, 36 now?" 35. "Well, same difference. Your eggs don't care about semantics." She laughed like this was hilarious. Others chuckled politely. Reese said nothing. Just cut into his pie. Something snapped. I stood up. Chair scraped against expensive hardwood. "Thank you for dinner. I need to go." "Already? But we haven't even talked about Christmas plans." "I won't be coming to Christmas." Melissa's smile faltered. "Anna, don't be dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear. This is the last family event I'll be attending." Reese finally looked up. "Anna, come on. Melissa's just trying to help." "Help?" I turned on him. "When have you ever helped me, Reese? When have either of you done anything but treat me like I'm broken? Like I'm less than? That's not fair. You got $2 million. I got 5,000. And you stood there and told me it was because of my life choices. So no, I won't be coming to Christmas. I won't be coming to anything. I'm done." I walked out while Melissa sputtered protests behind me. Cried the entire drive home. Not sad tears, cleansing ones. Liberating ones. That was the last time I spoke to any of them for 2 years. And in those 2 years, everything changed. I job hopped twice, strategic moves, each time negotiating higher salaries. First to $155,000, then to $180,000. The second company was a startup, early stage but promising. They made me employee number 32 and gave me stock options that seemed meaningless at the time. I bought a small house in Gilroy. Nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, a yard, room to breathe. But it was mine. Every mortgage payment felt like victory. I started dating again. Met David at a bookstore of all places, reaching for the same book on urban farming. He was a high school biology teacher, made a third of what I did, and never once seemed threatened by my success. "You're going to be a CEO someday," he said on our 4th date. "I'm a developer, not management material. You're someone who sees a problem and doesn't stop until it's solved. That's what CEOs do." We moved in together after a year. He was the first man who seemed to actually like that I was ambitious, that I worked long hours, that I gave a shit about my career. Then the acquisition happened. I was in a Friday morning all-hands meeting when our CEO announced that we'd been acquired by a major tech company. Purchase price: $400 million. My stock options, the ones I'd accumulated over 2 years, were suddenly worth real money. A lot of money. I excused myself and threw up in the bathroom. My shares were worth $847,000. Before taxes, but still. I was looking at over $500,000 landing in my account over the next 6 months as the acquisition finalized. I called David from my car, hyperventilating. "Breathe," he said. "Just breathe. This is good. This is amazing. I'm going to be a millionaire." "You're going to be a millionaire who still has to finish the sprint you're working on. Go back inside. Celebrate with your team. We'll process this tonight." That night, we drank an entire bottle of champagne and made plans. Pay off every cent of debt. Done. Max out retirement contributions. Done. And then, the idea that changed everything. "Let's buy land," I said. David blinked. "Like, investment property. Like, our property. Somewhere we can build exactly what we want. Somewhere that's completely ours." We found 15 acres in the hills near Morgan Hill. It had a run-down farmhouse on it, but the bones were good and the view was incredible. We could see the valley, the lights of San Jose twinkling in the distance. What would we do with 15 acres? David asked. Everything. We renovated the main house first, gutted it, rebuilt it as a modern farmhouse with solar panels and a garden. Then I got ambitious. I want to build a guest house, I told the contractor. What for? I don't know yet. But I want space. I want options. I want something that's completely, undeniably mine. The guest house became my obsession. 1,200 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, full kitchen, completely self-contained. I designed it myself, learned about building codes, worked with architects and contractors. It took 18 months, but when we finished, the property was appraised at $1.4 million. David proposed on the deck of the guest house. The valley spread out below us like a promise. Build a life with me, he said. Build everything. I said yes. Life became something I didn't recognize. Good. Stable. Mine. I still thought about my parents sometimes. About Reese. But it was distant now, like an old injury that only ached when it rained. Then, 3 months ago, the Facebook message arrived. From Reese. Hey sis. Long time no talk. Hope you're well. Can we meet for coffee? I showed David. What do you think he wants? Nothing good. I ignored it. He sent another message a week later. Then another. Finally, Anna, please. I really need to talk to you. It's important. Against every instinct, I agreed to meet him at a Starbucks between Morgan Hill and Palo Alto. He looked destroyed. The golden child, the chosen one, looked like he'd aged 15 years in 3. Dark circles, wrinkled clothes, no wedding ring. Thanks for coming, he said. What happened to you? He laughed, bitter, broken. Everything went to shit, Anna. Completely to shit. Explain. The story spilled out. The investments Dad left him. Reese had moved them all into cryptocurrency based on advice from a friend. He'd been convinced it would make him rich beyond measure. Instead, he'd lost 80% of the portfolio in a crash. He'd taken a second mortgage on the house to cover the losses, certain he could make it back. He couldn't. Melissa left him when the money dried up. Took half of what remained in the divorce. He'd sold the house, the boat, the BMW. The Tahoe cabin was in foreclosure. I have about $40,000 left, he said. From over $2 million, I have $40,000. I sipped my coffee. Said nothing. I know we haven't been close. I know I wasn't fair. The will reading. I should have said something. Yes. You should have. I'm sorry, Anna. I really am. He couldn't meet my eyes. I heard you're doing well. Tech job, bought a house. Here it comes. I'm doing fine. That's great. Really great. He stirred his coffee obsessively. Look, I'm going to be honest. I'm struggling. Living with a roommate in Fremont, working in sales, barely making rent. I was wondering. I know it's a lot to ask. No. He blinked. I haven't even. Whatever you're about to ask, the answer is no. Anna, I'm family. You were family when you watched Mom and Dad give you everything and me nothing. You were family when you told me it was my fault for making bad life choices. You don't get to be family now that you need something. His face flushed. So you're just going to watch me struggle? You're not struggling. You're inconvenienced. There's a difference. I stood up. Left him there. Blocked his number that night. But Reese didn't give up. He started showing up. At my workplace. At the grocery store near my house. David had to threaten police involvement before he stopped. Then, 2 weeks ago, a new approach. Aunt Carol appeared at my door with Reese in tow. Anna, sweetheart. Can we talk? I should have slammed the door. Instead, I let them in. Mistake. For an hour, they tag-teamed me. Family is everything. Blood is thicker than water. Reese made mistakes, but who hasn't? Was I really going to be the person who abandoned family? You have this whole big house, Aunt Carol said. Surely there's room. I have a guest house, I said, immediately regretting it. Reese's eyes lit up. Really? It's not available. Why not? Do you have guests coming? That's not the point. So it's just sitting empty while I'm struggling to make rent. His voice rose. Do you know how selfish that is? Selfish? I laughed. You got $2 million, Reese. $2 million. I got 5,000. And now I'm selfish because I won't bail you out of your own stupidity. Those were investments. They could have. But they didn't. And that's not my problem. Aunt Carol grabbed my arm. Anna. Honey. I know the will wasn't fair. We all know that. But this is your chance to be the bigger person. I looked at her hand on my arm. At her sympathetic expression. At Reese, who looked desperate and entitled in equal measure. Get out. Anna. Get out of my house. Both of you. Now. Aunt Carol's face hardened. Your parents would be ashamed of you. My parents were ashamed of me long before this. That's why I got $5,000. Leave. They left. Aunt Carol called me cold-hearted and bitter on her way out. I installed security cameras that afternoon. Over the next week, I got calls from extended family I hadn't heard from in years. All with the same message. Help Reese. Be the bigger person. Family helps family. Not one of them called when I got $5,000. Not one reached out when I was working full-time and going to school. Not one defended me at Thanksgiving. Now they all had opinions about my obligations. I blocked most of them. Changed my number. Locked down my social media. Yesterday, I watched Reese's car pull into my driveway on the security feed. Which brings us to now. To this moment, watching my brother stand on my porch with a duffel bag and a box of possessions, ringing my doorbell for the 4th time. David touches my shoulder. What are you going to do? I pull out my phone and call Reese. He jumps, fumbling for his phone. Anna, are you home? I'm at your door. I see you. I have cameras. He looks around, spots one, waves awkwardly. Can you let me in? We need to talk. No. Anna, please. I got evicted. My roommate kicked me out. I have nowhere else to go. You have $40,000. Get a hotel. That money needs to last. I can't waste it on. Then find a cheap apartment. Find another roommate. Figure it out. I'm begging you. I'm your brother. And something crystallizes. Perfect clarity. Reese, do you remember what you said at the will reading? You said maybe if I'd made different life choices, things would be different. Do you remember? Silence. You stood there and watched our parents give you everything and me scraps, and you told me I deserved it. That it was my fault. I was an asshole. You were right, though. Life choices do matter. I chose to take my $5,000 and build something. I chose to work myself half to death. I chose to bet on myself when nobody else would. And you chose to coast on money you didn't earn, make stupid investments, and assume everything would work out because it always had. So you're just going to let me be homeless? You're not homeless. You're inconvenienced. And yes, I'm going to let you figure this out yourself. Exactly like I had to. Anna, please. Here's what I'm going to give you, Reese. The exact same thing you gave me when our parents handed you $2 million and me $5,000. Nothing. Good luck. I hang up. On the monitor, I watch him stand there, shoulders shaking. Then he picks up his stuff, walks to his beat-up Honda, definitely not the BMW, and drives away. David wraps his arms around me. You okay? I'm perfect. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not waiting for my family to see my worth. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I'm just free. That evening, Jenny texts, heard Reese tried to move in. You good? Better than good. He's gone. You know what you should do. Rent that guest house on Airbnb. Make money off it. Brilliant. Within 2 days, the listing is live. Within a week, I have my first booking, a a couple from Seattle, staying a month while house hunting. They're paying $3,200. I use part of that first payment to donate to a community college scholarship fund. For first-generation students. For people who have to build everything from nothing. Because here's what my parents accidentally taught me. The greatest gift they ever gave me was nothing. They gave me hunger. Motivation. A reason to prove I was worth more than their assessment. Reese got everything and learned nothing. I got nothing and learned everything. 3 months pass. The guest house stays booked solid. I'm making $38,000 a year on it, passive income on top of my salary, which is now $210,000 after another promotion. David and I get married in our backyard. 20 people. Not one blood relative. I don't miss them. On our honeymoon in Portugal, a LinkedIn message arrives. From Reese. Hey. I know you don't want to hear from me. I'm doing better. Got a decent job in Ohio, living with my ex-wife's family, making okay money. I've been thinking about everything. About how I treated you. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted to say I get it now. Why you said no. You were right. I needed to figure it out myself. Still figuring it out. So you got married. Congratulations. I mean that. I show David on our hotel balcony, overlooking the Atlantic. You going to respond? I think about it. About the little girl who desperately wanted her parents' love. About the woman who thought achievement would finally make her enough. About who I am now, someone who knows her worth regardless of other people's opinions. Maybe someday, I say. Not today. Today, I'm on my honeymoon with a man who thinks I'm extraordinary. I have a career I love. A home I built. A future I created from $5,000 and a mountain of rage. I set my phone down and order wine. Reese is rebuilding his life in Ohio. Aunt Carol is probably complaining about me to whoever will listen. The extended family has moved on to other drama. And me. I'm free. Because the best revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you. It's building a life so full, so complete, that their opinions become irrelevant. It's becoming so secure in yourself that their validation, or lack of it, doesn't even register. My parents thought I was worth $5,000. They were wrong. I was worth so much more. I just had to be the one to prove it. 2 years later, David and I are on our porch when a car pulls up. My heart stutters, it's Reese's Honda. But when he gets out, he's not carrying a duffel bag. He's holding a bottle of wine and wearing a nervous smile. I should have called, he says. I know I should have. Yeah. I'm in town for work. Sales conference. I'm doing okay. Got promoted to team lead. He shifts his weight. I was wondering if we could talk. Really talk. I've been in therapy, working through a lot. I owe you a real apology. Not the desperate one. A real one. I look at David. He shrugs. 1 hour, I tell Reese. We sit on the porch, and he talks. About being raised to believe he was special. About how losing everything destroyed him and rebuilt him. About finally understanding what I tried to tell him. I was a terrible brother, he says. I don't expect instant forgiveness. But I want to try to be better. If you'll let me. This doesn't mean you can move into the guest house. He laughs. Actually laughs. Trust me, lesson learned. I have my own place in Fremont. Small, but it's mine. I'm paying my own way. Good. He stays for 2 hours. We don't solve everything. Can't undo 37 years in one conversation. As he leaves, he pauses. The place looks incredible. You built this yourself. Most of it. Mom and Dad would be. He trails off. Shocked, I finish. Because they never believed I could. I think they'd be proud. Maybe. But it doesn't matter anymore. I'm proud of me. That's enough. He nods slowly. Yeah, I'm learning that too. After he drives away, David holds me. You okay? Yeah, I really am. Because healing isn't about the people who hurt you finally seeing your worth. It's about you seeing it yourself and building a life that reflects it. My parents left me $5,000 and gave everything to my golden brother. They thought they were writing me out of the legacy. Instead, they set me free to build my own. And that's the story of how I turned the worst inheritance into the best gift I ever received. Now I want to hear from you. What was your favorite part of this story? Did you see Reese's downfall coming? Do you think Anna should forgive him or keep her distance? Tell me in the comments right now, and let me know where you're watching from, your city, your state, your country. And if this story gave you chills, made you angry, or had you rooting for Anna from the beginning, you need to subscribe because next week's story is about a woman who discovers her dead husband left her a phone with a password, and what's inside makes her richer than her children who inherited $50 million. Hit that like button. It costs you nothing but helps me massively. Share this with someone who's ever been underestimated by their family. Until then, remember, your worth isn't determined by how people treat you. It's determined by how you treat yourself after they're done. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.